It is the far future, and you are a man that lives under a future socialist government in America. And when I mean socialism, I'm not referring to state capitalism like China. I mean socialism as described by Karl Marx. But the point is that you live in the city of Philadelphia and you want to buy a pizza, which begs the question, how do you buy a pizza under socialism? Socialism is a lower stage of communism, where the only difference between socialism and communism is that under socialism there are labor vouchers. Labor vouchers can be used for services and goods. Before socialism is achieved, there is a dictatorship of the proletariat, which, despite the name, is not actually a dictatorship. Dictatorship just means absolute rule, and absolute rule of the proletariat, which just means absolute rule of the majority. A dictatorship of the proletariat is different from socialism because it has limited markets and commodity production, while under socialism there is no commodity production. So in order to buy a pizza under socialism, you need labor vouchers to buy a pizza, which under socialism labor vouchers are the currency, but labor vouchers work differently from traditional money. Under socialism, the cost of goods, which is the cost of the amount of labor vouchers you need to purchase, is based on how many hours you work, and the more expensive items like an iPhone or a computer cost more hours for you to work. A loaf of bread would cost like 0.2 hours of work, for an example, while a personal computer would cost somewhere like 300 hours of work. But under socialism, a pizza would cost 1 hour of work, and that would not be for just a slice of pizza. That would be like for the entire thing. And after you buy a pizza, those labor vouchers is gone. Labor vouchers are not money. They cannot be used for loaning interest. You cannot use them to invest into profit. You cannot use them to hire workers, and they cannot circulate from one person to another person or become capital. And labor vouchers expire after a set of time. So you use labor vouchers to buy pizza under socialism. Then how do you get labor vouchers? Well, by going to work. But going to work is much different than under capitalism. You work, but you work less hours than under capitalism, but you earn more. The majority of the economy and the society is ran by automation or AI robot. But there doesn't exist this fear under socialism that AI is going to take everyone's jobs because the government assigns everyone a job. And when the government assigns everyone a job, they could only leave that job if they find another job. Everyone has to have a job unless they are disabled mentally or physically, in which case the government provides you with food and resources to live. Also, another important difference about work itself is that there is strong democracy in the workplace. Going to work feels less like wasting time and being stressed out, and more like being a part of a community that makes decisions democratically. And these decisions affect you, and you see how they affect you. And you have an interest to vote for the best decisions. So to answer the question in its entirety, how to buy a pizza under socialism, you buy a pizza under socialism by going to work and then getting labor vouchers based on the amount of hours you worked, and then you use some of those to buy a pizza. And you buy a pizza at a worker-ran restaurant or a workers' council that produces food like pizza instead of just basic food. Now, you might think that sounds a lot like capitalism. You go to work to buy food. But the thing is that socialism is meant to be the next step of humanity after capitalism. Just unlike capitalism, there isn't any exploitation. But also, life is generally less stressful. Under socialism, if you want to live in an apartment or a house, all you have to do is apply for it, get into a waiting list, and eventually you get an apartment or a house. And once you get a place to live, you don't pay rent or bills, especially since all of the energy to power your utilities are all powered by renewable energy. And you also won't have to pay taxes. And on top of that, there is this strong welfare state. Free healthcare, free housing, everyone has the means to get a job to provide for their families, because getting a job is extremely easy under socialism. And you don't have to worry about losing your job unless you're like a really violent person or something. But you still have to go to work every day to get food, but on top of food, also luxury items. Like, when you get an apartment from the government, there's not going to be any furniture. You don't get stuff like a phone for free. And you work less hours because AI robots do most of the work. The reason why you still need to work is because AI robots can't do everything. And AI robots are meant to be servants of humanity instead of a replacement of humanity. In America right now, capitalism leads to the situation in which none of the people in power represents the people or cares about the people. I mean, in Congress is controlled by lobbyist groups and corporations, and Congress isn't even loyal to the country, more so loyal to Israel and Saudi Arabia. But worst of all is that the people in power are all wealthy and live in a private bubble where any law and any policy they implement doesn't affect them. Trump genuinely doesn't care about the American people because even if a mass famine happened, it would never affect him because he just lives inside of a wealth bubble. Trump and all of the people in power just don't have any empathy for the American people, do not represent the American people, and come to power from not votes, but from money. America is more of an oligarchy of corrupt capitalist elites that steal the wealth of the country and harm children than it is a democracy. Socialism solves all of this. Under socialism, there would be no lobbyists, there would be no corporations influencing Congress, because under socialism, corporations, large businesses, and the free market would be abolished. AIPAC and groups like it would all be illegal under socialism. So the only people influencing the American government would be the people. And under socialism, the president of the United States wouldn't be allowed to raise all this money for their election campaign or raise any money at all, since money would be abolished, just complete and total taking money out of politics. But most importantly of all is that under socialism, everyone would have a job, but everyone would be making basically the same amount of income and have the same material realities. There would not exist a class of private elites under socialism that own a private island like Jeffrey Epstein or whatever, because under socialism, all of that would just be illegal. Now, there is this saying that socialism is about making everyone equally poor, but that's not true. In terms of quality of life, everyone under socialism gets what can be compared to a middle-class style quality of life. Now, that might make you sad, because you want to become rich, even though that's not realistic, but the truth is that you don't need 5 mansions to be happy in life. All you need to truly be happy in life is just to spend more time with your wife. And capitalism is destroying the planet and the human race, so abolishing it is not optional. And rich people do more harmful things with their power. It's just human nature that wealth is never going to trickle down. But one of the more important points about how socialism would change leadership in America is that everyone in power, Congress, and the president himself and his family would not live inside of a wealth bubble. So if Congress or the president does something that ruins the country, it will affect them personally. And this leads them to being able to have more empathy towards the people and to be more accountable. But outside of capitalism, America does need more checks and balances. And a federal parliamentary republic with a government based off of European democracies would create more of that. But the point is that socialism prevents a leader from being isolated from their actions, as well as expanding democracy into the workplace. At least that is what real socialism would look like. The Soviet Union, especially under Stalin, never became socialist because since the very start of the country, it adopted this authoritarianism. But if the Soviet Union didn't go down this authoritarian path, then it would definitely, turn out like this. But anyways, that's gonna be it for this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and peace.